think I am. I can't believe you believe in Batman. We disagree, but I still give a damn. Your guru assures if you follow his regimen, you will become a most excellent specimen. The power to live on and on for all days is right at your fingertips if someone pays.
I specialize in a type of comic book called Manga, which is in the comic book form of its animated
installments of $10.95. The device he uses sucks out the bad juices and leaves no bad bruises. It's simple.
And my focus in my storytelling is to promote skepticism and science-based thinking.
And so do you do that through like this, is it like heavy-handed, like they're all about science, or is it a little more...
It's a little more subtle. I think fiction is a powerful, way to express a message to people. And typically the skeptical fiction you come across is like, of course, the classic Sherlock Holmes, and then all of the mystery and detective stories after that are usually quite skeptical. But I think you can even, and of course sci-fi as well, Star Trek being like the secular humanist, series. But I think you can even do fantasy and comic book stuff, and as long as you have the characters as role models, I'd like to present characters who, a variety of characters, that just, oh my god, I'm so sorry, this is my alarm for this talk.
Well, you made it!
And it's the Star Trek red alert.
Well,
oh my god.
It's appropriate.
Yeah, so instead of that, always the cold, calculating stereotype of the rational, logical character, showing that you can still have emotions, you can have all kinds of different, characteristics and personalities. It's how you operate, when it comes to claims that matters.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be this, cold person all the time. So, yeah, really focusing on, just like if you were to break any other type of stereotype, like with female characters, a lot in entertainment, they're either the woman in distress,
right.
the love interest, or they're like super masculine.
They can be both feminine and strong, and
you don't get a variety of characters like you see with male characters. Even looking at American comic books and the variety of superheroes there are with men, there's different characters. Superman is a very different personality than Batman, and then is a very different personality than Spider-Man, and it represents, the variety of personalities, where you often tend to either have like the Black Widow sexualized character or the Amazon masculine Wonder Woman, and you don't have like the people who, like with the men, you have Joker, like the guy who's a Joker,
a huge range of like interesting good and bad guys. That's a really interesting point.
And that's one of the things that drew me to manga, is there is a wider variety of stories that are being told, and a lot of female characters who are the stereotype of like the girly character, the boy crazy character, but is still the heroine of the story and still gets things done. And that was something that I think growing up with just Western examples of like the strong princesses, like the Princess Leia's, and the, it's like, well, you don't have to be so like tomboy or masculine. You can care about your hair and makeup and want to wear pretty dresses and still get stuff done. So
you don't have to pick feminine or ass kicking.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do you have any, besides like Princess Leia, do you have any more contemporary Western characters, like female characters, that you think are a good example of that?
I really enjoy Harry Potter and the character of Hermione.
That's a good one.
Yeah, she's real she's a real good role model, and I think Harry Potter in general is a good example of how you can use a world based in magic and fantasy, yet the characters operate quite skeptically, and they're in my view, I found a lot of the messages to be humanist, despite its magical content. You know, the secular humanist message of it's not who you're born, even though you have to be born into magic. There are some who don't come from like a pure bloodline, you know, versus the people who believe like almost like they have divine power and therefore better than other people. I think Harry Potter had that message of equality for all people, and also with Hunger Games, I think you have a pretty strong character in Katniss. Especially in the book where you have more of her internal dialogue, and she kind of balances on the outside being very strong but being sort of weak in the inside, unsure of herself and unsure of things.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The books did a better job of kind of...
But that's hard to come through in film
course.
of your inner dialogue, so
Right.
I think they did a good adaptation, but that's another character that I think balances we all have the stereotypical masculine and feminine traits, whether you're a man or a woman. So I think that does a good job of portraying that. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I was glad to see the Avengers film didn't make Black Widow into like somebody's girlfriend.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
Which usually they don't do because of the female character, like that, a woman must be a girlfriend. But they usually have this weird thing of wanting, if they have a certain number of men in a team together, it's like they have I've heard it called the case of the not gays. They want to use a woman character to show that, for some bizarre reason, like, it's not just a group of guys and it's weird. Like, one guy has a girlfriend. It's not. And I felt they did that with the Star Trek reboot with Spock. Like, why did Uhura have to turn into one of the crew members' girlfriends? Or were they thinking of like the Kirk Spock dynamic is like one of the best bromances?
Sure, it's like a Sam and Frodo kind of like.
Yeah, it's like if they had in the film gave I guess Sam had a girlfriend at the end, a wife at the end, but it's this weird thing they have where they have to pop in a girlfriend for some reason. But luckily with Avengers they kept she's part of the team.
I mean, do you think that's indicative of just kind of a still latent homophobia that filmmakers have, or is that just trying to make the characters more interesting and change the dynamics between, instead of like we're just coworkers, we're like coworkers / lovers, or do you think it's just like we're kind of homophobic and don't want implied gay characters?
I imagine like typically it's a bit of homophobia. I think with maybe the Star Trek reboot they're just trying to mix things up, like what if there was a romance between the crew members. Sure. But it kind of uses a female character as like a thing. But I hope things are moving in a better direction. I mean, definitely the Hunger Games popularity and having a strong female lead is a good sign, and Brave was good. And
what did you think of how Hunger Games was kind of popular at the same time as Twilight? Because I feel like those are two like polar opposite characters in terms of like strong, awesome, independent woman versus like the worst woman.
Bella isn't a role model.
No.
But I think her popularity comes from the fact that if the writing wasn't so horrible, she doesn't have a lot of depth. But I think a lot of young women and teenagers relate more to Bella because she's so ordinary and clumsy and boy crazy, and she wants to be saved, and like the idea that you're the center of attention, but there's no reason why.
Right.
The male lead isn't described very well, so you kind of can put in your own Edward, and it's sort of like a reverse harem, right? It's the woman with the many men who want you, and just the fact that I think a lot of teenagers are very passive. You don't have a lot of Katnisses and Hermiones.
Right.
When you're a teenager, you do feel emo a lot, and it's more realistic. Even though she's very two-dimensional, I think it's more realistic of how most
do you think it's how teenagers are, or how they see themselves, or is it both? Like, is Bella is she actually really a stereotypical teenager, or do people just want to be Bella?
I think she is a stereotypical teenager.
Just
you're very involved with your own emotions and your own
selfish.
Yeah.
Do you think Twilight's anti-feminist?
I'm kind of almost, even though I know Twilight isn't good and I don't like it, I think people are tougher on it because it's a female fan base. Because I think there are so many horrible books and movies that are geared towards men that they get a pass, right? Like, nobody really takes, Too Fast, Too Furious, number 6 that seriously or whatever. They know what it is. But something like Sex and the City 2 gets trashed, even though it's that same, Sex and the City is like The Hangover for, geared towards a certain female audience.
Right.
But it gets trashed, yet something, that's just fluff entertainment for men or for fanboys, it gets a pass. So I don't like being hard on the Twilight fans too much, because I think there's a bit of backlash against having a female-based fandom.
Absolutely.
They're invading Comic-Con. Well,
they have as much right to be there as you do.
They're a type of nerd as well. Like, they're geeking over these books with vampires and fantasy novel, like fantasy themes. And how is that any different than a lot of the male dominated? There's a lot of crap out there in comics and books that are mostly male young men, geek and nerdery. So I think people are a little hard on Twilight. Like, why can't they have their
You're absolutely right.
guilty pleasure awfulness? And it's getting young people reading, and
there's something to be said about
even though it's awful.
Pick up a book.
I think if it gets you into a bookstore or library, they'll find a copy of The Hunger Games and Harry Potter.
So do you have any big plans for this weekend? What are you looking forward to? You've been to TAM before, yeah?
Yeah, I've spoken. This is my 3rd year in a row speaking. I live in a really remote part of northern Ontario. There's not a lot of people to socialize with who are in skepticism or science-based interests. So I really love coming to TAM and being able to see people and talk to people, and sort of like the hangout, the socializing is what I really like, because because so many conferences and scientists make the lectures and stuff available online. I think it's the getting together and mingling and meeting new people that I find most valuable about coming to these things. I'm really looking forward to doing my talk.
Does it have a title?
Skepticism is for everyone. How to promote skepticism through entertainment.
Oh, okay. I like that.
So my storytelling angle again of how to use storytelling as a platform for delivering our skeptical message, rather than just going through like I'm gonna read a blog post, or I'm gonna see a lecture, or there's obviously great value in that. I love listening, to audiobooks and lectures, and
that's not for everybody.
But I think you can also have entertainment be something that can translate, like, sort of, if for lack of a better word, like skeptic values.
No, yeah.
I think entertainment fiction is usually used. Well, obviously, religion has mythology that they use storytelling to convey their belief systems. Instead of talking at them, they're involved in it. You're the character going through the story, or you go through a journey in a piece of fiction.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not somebody telling you, like, this is this.
Yeah.
It's you experiencing it with them.
So I think they end up feeling more like it's more their own, like it's a shared message.
Sure.
Especially if you're not doing a story that's really proselytizing and bonking people over the head. It's almost like, oh, well, did you notice that there's this message? Like, you lead them to it. I like using in my talk the example of the movie Inception, where they have the idea of creating this dream world that will lead the character to finding the conclusion themselves.
Oh.
Right? Like, they want to plant an idea in your head, but you have to feel as though you came to that idea. So they create these characters and the architecture of the world, and it's very much like an allegory for a film, right? Where you come up with a plot and the characters in the setting, and the audience is the target where you take them through this sort of dream world that you've constructed. And hopefully, if you've done it right by the end, they've come to the idea and they feel like, oh, like I sort of came up with this idea. I got it from this story.
Happy birthday, Mr. President!
Hi.
Oh my gosh.
How's it going?
I'm very apologetic. This is, we're in a very time-sensitive thing for the $1 million challenge.
Okay. We can wrap it up. Are you giving us $1 million? Because we can be right out of here if that's...
I bet you're right in the middle of recording. I am very sorry. But
no, I think we're kind of wrapping up.
I'll be more direct. We need this like this second.
Yeah.